As the primary brand of Smithfield Culinary, we take pride in offering a huge array of high-quality pork products. There's really something for everyone, helping you satisfy every crowd, every time. Visit us at smithfieldculinary.com/Smithfield.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Extra Serving, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I am Sam Okus, editor-in-chief here at NRN, joined once again by my esteemed colleague, executive editor Alicia Kelo. So, Alicia, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great, Alicia. I'm intimidated by your upcoming travel schedule. You are going to be a jet setter for the next, several weeks, really. But boy, this next week, how many corners of the globe are you going to be at in the next
I'll
week?
be in Cancun, Mexico on Sunday through Tuesday. And then I get back and then I go to Vegas. But the Vegas thing is personal. So that's
But it's Vegas.
That's
so
what you
good food.
Yeah.
You'll need to eat yourself around town. It'll be good. As I tell you and everybody else on our team, make sure you get lots of video, get some photos. Everything is content, boss. Alicia. Just remember that. Everything is content.
Yeah, they call me content queen, Sam.
Content queen. It is apt. Alicia, what happened this week? Any fun stories to tell?
Yeah, nobody was here.
We left you high and dry. You were holding down the fort.
And it was kind of a busy week, and I was mad at all of you for a long. I got my very first holiday press release this week, and I'm like, of course this happens when everybody's gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a pretty busy news week, and you were all at FS Tech, which is fine. Ron's in Miami at Burger King, so on the personal side, I will share a really quick funny story if
Sure.
I can. I was out running errands last weekend with my 10-year-old son, and we went to our favorite bookstore, which happens to be next to a melting pot. And he was hangry, and we have kids around the same age, so we both know what that's like.
Oh yeah.
And there's a melting pot that is situated right next to this bookstore of ours. And he walked by it, and he saw these really cute melting pot, like stuffed pots with faces, and he insisted that we go there. And when I say, and this is nothing against melting pot, it's not a top of mind brand to me because I have a young child. I've not been there in decades, and why not? So let's check it out. Let's see what's going on. And I'm really glad that I did. It was actually a really, really fun experience for him and I, doing all the fondue dipping. It was, the one thing I will say, it was a little daunting to me. Like, the menu's kind of challenging. I didn't really understand it, but we had an amazing server who actually wrote on a plate during the dessert portion that George is a Fortnite champ, and that made his day, which made my day, and everybody left happy, and we had, an abundance of value. And it was really interesting because it made me wonder how the concept is doing. And, we're kind of lucky in Louisville. I think there's less than 100 of these locations now. But they didn't close a lot during COVID, which surprises me given the concept.
Yeah.
It's communal. It's, this dipping thing that they've only closed, I think, 8 or 9 locations since 2020. Their sales have been rebounding quite nicely. But yeah, I that was really interesting that, they seem to be doing okay, all things considered. Again, given, my assumption that those kinds of places were probably disproportionately hit during that time. So
yeah, I mean, do they even have off-premises service? I don't know if they do that.
They do. In fact,
okay,
they do. They've been promoting that a lot lately, and I can't remember all the details, but I know they've been really trying to push the gas on some off-premise, trying to duplicate that experience off-premise. I imagine is a little challenging, but it might be worth me or somebody trying to figure out how that's going, because that is a great question. I know that they've been trying. That's all I can say at this point. So
yeah, I mean, I put that brand in the same bucket as like a Benihana or this rising group of like K-pot, like a hot pot Korean barbecue kind of concept, but where you have an active participation in the meal. And whatever you want to think about the term eatertainment, which I think we're continuing to get more and more over the term in general. But that's kind of like, it's kind of like a version of eatertainment, right? Because it is so experiential. And I think to that point, I would not take my kids to melting pot probably for a few more years, mostly for fear of them stabbing each other with the tools that you use to dip your food in the cheese. But I totally get what you're saying, where it's like, I mean, look, probably a lot of people listening to this are parents. You know that when you make your kid happy, you're happy, right? And so when a restaurant can achieve that, that is a huge win. And I don't care the quality of the food. If I walk out of a restaurant with my kids and we're all in good moods, I'm going back, because that is a very rare occasion.
Yeah. No doubt. And this was pricier than I expected to pay for lunch. Unquestionably, I was a little sticker shocked, but because it's not a thing that you do typically for lunch with your 10-year-old.
Right.
But they have this little spoon with holes, and they call it search and rescue. So when you lose your protein in the fondue, he could go in and search and rescue, and that it was fun for him. He wasn't itching for his iPad at all, and that Sam is the win.
Yes, that is a big, big win. Well, Alicia, we have a lot to get into with our headlines, so let's do it. The first thing I want to talk to you about, and you were all over this story, Chipotle has made official that they are moving their automated avocado, which, by the way, best name. I mean, it was low-hanging fruit, no pun intended, but it was like right there for them. The avocado, which was in test, is now going to be rolled out to their restaurants. And they also have their automated make line, which is going to be rolled out to restaurants. Explain what this means for Chipotle. What are these automated systems?
Sure. Yeah, no, happy to, because, I've been covering this brand for a long, long time now. And Chipotle has made it very clear that they want to get to 7,000 restaurants and 4 million average unit volumes from their current about 3,500 and I think just over 3 million. So the company is sharply focused on operational throughput. I've written about this throughput focus to death, probably. So rolling out new equipment, doubling down on employee training, and investing heavily in automation solutions like the two that you just mentioned. And we're about to get a clearer picture of that impact on the last point, because, that avocado and the make line will go live in just a single restaurant for each. And I really like the potential here because, when you think about the numbers, for Chipotle, and they laid this out clearly, the company is expected to use 5.18 million cases of avocados this year. Wow. This avocado automation system fully fleshes out the fruit inside of the avocado every 26 seconds. And then it goes to the employees who then hand mash the guacamole. So there's, it's not replacing labor fully. And then for that make line, it makes bowls and salads, and about 65 of all digital orders at Chipotle include a bowl and a salad. Mm-hmm. So there's potential here. If this goes through their stage gate process, there's potential here to save a lot of time and boost a lot of productivity. And I want to stress that I am in the camp that I think these things complement rather than replace existing labor. For the most part, they free up employees to focus on assistance elsewhere or focus on hospitality. The company has touted these systems in previous testing iterations for removing, quote, less favorable tasks for team members. Look, we eat a lot of guacamole at the Kelso household. I would die to have an avocado in my kitchen. That process is super annoying. It's not a favorable process. And I think it's also worth mentioning that they expect it to help with accuracy and, again, that throughput. But these are super early phases of the test. If there's any company to crack the code here, I would put my money on Chipotle. They're company owned. They don't have any debt. So, obviously we will keep a firm pulse on this. They're very strict on their stage gate process. So I imagine we're not going to have new news on this for a little bit, but that new news will be, I'll be excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, this is such a great upgrade to sort of the first wave of automation in restaurants, which was really Flippy, the robot, and which Chipotle also partook in with Chippy, the robot, which was frying their tortilla chips. To get to this next stage, I think and for it to be at such a mainstream brand such as Chipotle, I think it is a great indication of where the industry is going as it relates to automation and robotics. I believe we talked about Sweetgreen perhaps last week or the week before, but talking about Sweetgreen's Infinite Kitchen. Now, that is a little bit more on the extreme side where you have more of a fully automated kitchen. I mean, that is a genuinely, robotic operation that's a little bit more novel and kind of part of a show. But what Chipotle is doing here is what I think is going to be much, much more realistic for most restaurants, which is, finding some of the operations in your kitchen that you can automate and not, to your point, Alicia, replace the employee, but to enhance their job, to make their job easier so that it's easier to hire because they're not having such arduous labor that they have to do, but it also allows them to focus more on hospitality, so your employees can focus on being more efficient, more friendly and hospitable while the automation does the work for you. This is part of a trend for this week. I don't want to spoil later in our conversation, but when we get into FS Tech, that to me was a big lesson from FS Tech because AI was all over this thing. But I think starting not in these whiz bang customer facing automated tools, start small, and that's relative, of course, because this stuff is not small or cheap, but start with some of these kitchen tasks that can be automated, that can make your employees' life a lot easier, so you can make hiring easier and you can make things more efficient. And then perhaps later on we graduate to some of those flashier whiz bang customer facing
Yeah.
automated
There's a
robotics.
reason. There's a reason companies have started to move away from those robot waiters that we saw at the National Restaurant Association show a couple of years ago. I think I saw two this year, comparatively, is because we probably went overboard with this shiny new tech.
Yeah.
And to your point, we probably didn't need to do that. We just need to make these processes and procedures and systems just a little easier for the team members. I do want to add real quick. I heard a rumor that Chipotle moved away from Chippy, and so I've made myself a note to chase that down.
That's interesting. Yes, please do. Let's find out because obviously they're investing in automation, but if Chippy wasn't working out for them, then that will be interesting to find out why. Okay, one more headline I want to get into before we get into our extra serving of the week. I want to talk about Darden and Olive Garden. Darden announced that for the first time, Olive Garden will be delivering via third party. Now, important caveat that the company has emphasized. This is not technically, they say, third-party delivery because they've entered into a partnership with Uber and Uber Eats, but this is not, they're not going to be on the marketplace. So white labeled, you can do delivery via Olive Garden and Uber will deliver it for you, but you cannot find Olive Garden on the marketplace. Still, Alicia, this is big news, right? Because Olive Garden, the largest casual dining chain in the country, has resisted doing delivery alongside Texas Roadhouse, the second largest casual dining chain. And now they have caved and they are going to deliver their food. Why is this such a big deal?
Because of what you just said, because they've been such a long holdout. And this does leave Texas Roadhouse as, the last man standing, if you
Yeah.
will.
Mhm.
The caveat here, of course, it's a test. It's a 100-unit pilot. So who knows where this will go, and this pilot's going to run through the holidays. And then if all systems work, then it's going to, then they're going to consider a system-wide rollout and then it's additional brands. The news here is, like you said, that they've been a long holdout. Darden, champions itself as best in class operations. And so when pressed, as to why it was not even considering this channel, that is what it came down to. Didn't want to get that third party experience in between the brands and its customers. What I think is happening here is we're about 4.5 years removed from the pandemic, and that essentially changed customer behaviors overnight. And those behaviors have sustained in a way that I think has surprised most of us, especially as the consumer environment softens. We all know that we pay more for delivery, and yet that channel continues to sustain. We haven't seen a huge drop off. We've seen a drop off in traffic across segments, but we've not seen a huge hit on delivery. So consumers have clearly proven that they are willing to pay a premium for that, that convenience. We go back to you and I being parents. I get it. Sometimes I can't leave the house,
Yep.
I'm willing to pay a premium for that delivery. And so I think that is what happened here is they tried to wait it out as long as possible and realized that this isn't going away. They're doing it in a different way. As you mentioned, I think that is what kind of surprises me, because I think one of the advantages of being on these marketplaces is we've habited consumers since the pandemic, to go to those marketplaces when it comes back to decision fatigue. And we talked about this last week with the food truck situation. Decision fatigue is very real. Sometimes I don't know what I want for dinner, so I just go on a marketplace and scroll, and there's all these options that I never would have thought about. I've spoken to several executives in the past year who have, informed me that they've reallocated their marketing dollars to have more prominent presence on these third place marketplace, to be on the first page, because that is how we've habited consumers.
Yep.
And that Olive Garden will not be on those on that Uber Eats marketplace. So they're going to have to put some marketing dollars behind this to, I guess, raise that awareness. Hey, we're here as well. But that is the one thing that kind of surprised me as well, is that is an advantage to being on the marketplaces.
Right.
You're in a consideration set that you were not in prior to not being on that.
Yeah, totally. It's fascinating to watch. And I think just another nail in the coffin of the idea that someday the industry would break free of the third party delivery platforms, which we all kind of thought, everybody's mad at them. Surely this will not be forever. Look, now that Olive Garden, whether or not Texas Roadhouse ever gets there, I don't know, because they're pretty adamant about sticking with what they're doing, and they're doing a very good job at it. But just shows you any reluctance, any hesitation to get on these platforms to deliver your food is really starting to melt away. As you understand, to your point, the consumer behavior is completely changed from what it was. Delivery will never go away. Consumers are going to want delivery at some level for the rest of time. And so these platforms are allowing that. Now, I want to get into one more thing related to that. But as I type and talk at the same time, I'm going to invite our colleague to join for the extra serving. And that is, we'll see if she shows up here momentarily. Okay.
We should do a drum roll since we're both drummers.
No, and I would do it on my deck, but it would seem just so weird.
It would.
But surely she's
my drum set's right over there if you need me to.
Oh, yeah, so you can do so. There she is, Joanna Fantozzi, senior editor.
Playing drums.
We were talking about doing a drum roll because I was doing this really awkward stretch thing of like trying to type to you and also trying to talk at the same time. So next time we're going to put a drum roll in there as we announce you. Joanna, welcome to Extra Serving. First, before we talk about the thing I told you we were going to talk about, I wanted to make sure we also briefly touched at least on the third-party delivery study that we've just published in partnership with our colleagues at Restaurant Business and In Touch Insight, a mystery shopping firm that studied the third-party platforms. Joanna, you said in your article on this that there is a clear winner in the third-party platforms. Tell us more about who that winner is.
Well, it's actually interesting because it does kind of dovetail because they talked about that at FS Tech.
They sure did.
The third-party delivery study. It was really interesting because I think I knew ahead of time, and I'm sure that our listeners probably realized that the winner, quote unquote, winner of the study was definitely DoorDash. I'm sure that's not really a surprise. And it wasn't a surprise to me so much, but I didn't realize how big of a difference there was between DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats. In almost all, but not quite all of the categories, but in almost all of them, DoorDash really led the way. In particular, the speed of service, which was, I found, just incredibly, it's such a huge difference. And I want to make sure I have the exact right time difference correct because it's been a little while since I wrote the story. but I believe there was just a 6-minute difference between DoorDash's average delivery time and Grubhub and Uber Eats, which were kind of neck and neck in that. And I just found that to be so fascinating. And yeah, and kind of talking to some of the sources that I spoke to, it really does seem like DoorDash just has a lot more opportunity and resources that the other two might not have, notably because Grubhub is a much smaller company and Uber Eats, even though Uber is a larger company overall than DoorDash, Uber Eats is a smaller component of that. And kind of a lot of the focus for such a long time has been on the ride sharing service. And
Right.
so kind of makes sense that DoorDash did so well.
Yeah, it was kind of stark, and I would encourage everybody listening to go to nrn.com and check out the third party delivery study. Alicia and Joanna both contributed to this in analyzing the data. It's kind of it was sort of startling to see how DoorDash won almost every category. I mean, it wasn't even close, and to some degree, Grubhub was bottom almost in every category. It was kind of interesting. We only In Touch Insight only did the three major ones: DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats. But it was almost like in the order DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, almost for every category. It was really fascinating. One thing I wanted to point out that they mentioned at FS Tech, which we are about to get into here, is they pointed out from the data that 1 out of 20 deliveries from Grubhub did not arrive at the right location. And he was making the point that if you look at some of this data, it says that order accuracy or arrived at the right location, 95%. And you hear 95%, you're like, oh, that's a big number. That's good, right? Well, if you think about it in the context of 1 out of 20 orders doesn't even show up at the right location, it's startling to think that could be possible in this day and age when, like, that's the definition of you had one job. You had to get this food from here to here. Forget about how much time it took. Forget about, whether it's good or bad. Just get it to that place. And 1 out of 20 times they did not. But again, since we only have limited time, I will tell everybody listening, please go to nrn.com to follow up on that study. Joanna, you and I are just back from Dallas. We were attending FS Tech, which of course is a long-standing event for the food service technology space. We were very happy to go moderate a couple of sessions, to walk the floor, to get to see this industry at work. Joanna, what are a few of your takeaways from the event?
I think that it was interesting how there were there were so many themes from almost across the board, whether you were talking to operators and vendors on the show floor or if you were just listening in on sessions. There were several themes that kind of seemed universal that almost everyone seemed to pretty much agree on. I think one of them, and sorry, I'm going to steal your thunder a little bit because I
All
know
right,
that I know that
go
you
for it. It's all yours.
you wanted to talk a bit about the AI, but I think that AI was really just pretty much the number one buzzword, with to the point that it became almost a joke, that people were saying, okay, we'll take a shot every time someone mentions AI, and you definitely would have ended up in the hospital had you done that. And I think that there are the consensus, I think, really is that AI is not artificial intelligence is not a perfect. It's still evolving. But it's time to, get in. If you haven't already, it's time to get involved, whether it's through things like voice AI. Another big one was using generative AI to write marketing copy or respond to reviews. And another one is my personal favorite is the invisible back of house stuff. And so things like inventory counting. That was one takeaway. Another thing I saw was that a lot of people were saying that basically loyalty, digital ordering, all these things were table stakes. They're just kind of a given that you are going to have this in place, whether it's perfected, whether you want to work with a new vendor, maybe someone that you meet at FS Tech. That's one thing, but you really have to have that nowadays. Yeah, I think that the third thing was a lot of people were anti-discounting. I don't know if you noticed this, Sam. This is actually something we hadn't talked about yet, but a lot of people were anti-discounting, and we're talking about using technology tools to help create or boost value rather than deep discounting. That was something that kept coming up.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, and to circle back around on the point on AI, I think it was the keynoter who was a futurist named Mike Walsh made this point. He said humans are not going to be replaced by AI. No, I'm sorry. This was not Mike Walsh. This was Joe Park, actually, the head of chief technology officer for Yum Brands. He said humans are not going to be replaced by AI. Humans are going to be replaced by humans using AI. And I think the point is here is that, don't be scared of AI as this thing that's going to come in and take all of our jobs and rule the world. Embrace AI as a tool that you can use to make your job, your business easier and better. And yes, just to drive that point home to Joanna, I think that, many speakers were talking about this notion of AI in the back of house, in the kitchen, making your employees' jobs easier. Joe Park from Yum also mentioned, the voice activated automation through the drive-through, and how it's not to replace the drive-through window order taker. It is just to make their job easier so that they can focus on providing better hospitality. Mike Rapetti, I got to interview on stage. He's the CTO for Habit Burger, also within Yum Brands. But he said the same thing. He's like, look, we're just using AI right now. We want to automate in the kitchen to make employees' lives easier. So AI, look, we're going to be talking about it for many, many years to come. But right now, if you're scared of AI or worried about how it might change things forever, think about it through that positive lens of it can complement your business, complement the roles that your employees are serving. So much to learn. Joanna Fantozzi, senior editor for NRN, Alicia Kelo, executive editor for NRN. Guys, thank you so much. We are going to throw it now to Brett Thorne. Last month, August, we ran our top restaurant groups report. We had 125 restaurant groups from around the country that we highlighted, and you can go check that out at nrn.com. And we wanted to share the perspective of one of those, and it's Cunningham Restaurant Group out of Indianapolis. And Brett Thorne, our senior food and beverage editor, spoke with their vice president of marketing, Carissa Newton, about Cunningham, what makes this restaurant group tick, and what some of its goals are. Joanna, Alicia, thank you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Anyway, please tell me about Cunningham Restaurant Group. You guys started in 97, I think. Is that right?
Sure.
Tell me all about it. You have
So,
go ahead. I'm going to be quiet and you're going to talk if that's all right.
no, you're fine. You're fine. Cunningham Restaurant Group has been around for a number of years. I think we are at 28 years now. We started with our first concept, Boulder Creek Dining Company in Brownsburg, Indiana, and then it quickly grew into concept by concept. Today we have 19 concepts and 44 locations across Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky.
KIO, as we'll say, Kentucky.
Yep.
Indiana. And what are your restaurants like? What are some of the defining characteristics?
Our concepts run the range from, we have some quick grab and go cafes, and then we have a bulk of our restaurants sit in like that family full service category. And then we have a handful that are on the finer dining end. And then we have a private speakeasy club. We have a number of event centers and spaces that we can offer that way. And then this fall, we'll also be introducing a catering entity.
I see. And who are the people behind Cunningham Restaurant Group?
Well, the owner and founder is Mike Cunningham, and he started the group after he had had some success in the restaurant space with a number of different brands, and ultimately opened up Boulder Creek, and the rest is kind of history. We've been doing that ever since.
And is Boulder Creek kind of a casual dining restaurant?
Yeah, it's a casual dining, family-based restaurant, sit down, full service, reservations, kind of a neighborhood stopping grounds.
I get you. I get an entree and a salad and a couple sides.
Yes.
That kind of menu.
Yeah, they're very well known for their ribs and their steaks. And so that also kind of fed into some other concepts like Stone Creek Dining and Charbono's, which were some of the early concepts. And then the group really kind of took off when we came into the downtown Indianapolis area and started revitalizing a number of areas in downtown. We introduced a Brew Burger Bar, and that Brew Burger Bar has since grown to, I believe they have 15 locations. We have one more opening this fall. The other brands, there's Mesh, there's Tavern at the Point downtown, there's Vita, which is a hot fine dining restaurant that is a triple A 4 diamond rated restaurant, is a 2-time James Beard semifinalist. And they have been serving the market, gosh, I want to say well over 12 years now. It's been a while.
And it's Italian?
No, it's more farm to table American. They try to pull from seasonal ingredients that are locally available and build their menus that way. But they offer chef tasting and coursed menus.
I see. I heard Vito, but it's Vita. I now see it.
Vita, yes, like life, because that was the equivalent of what we were thinking of, is that Vita means life, and in the sense that you're pulling from all these local ingredients, is that it's fueling you for life.
Cool. But although you do have an Italian concept called a Theos.
We have a couple of Italian concepts. We have Theos. Theos is primarily pizza and pasta. They do a lot of house-made pastas. They do pizzas that are more like a flatbread type of pizza with some interesting ingredients. And then we have a restaurant in the downtown market called Nesso, which is Italian. And they have a lot of coastal Italian dishes, but then they also have a lot of traditional Italian dishes like pastas and red sauces and things like that.
I see. And Modita, that sounds like it might be Mexican?
No, actually Modita is an Asian inspired restaurant. So when we look at our group, many of our restaurants will fall into certain themes of different culinary taste. Or regions. And what we typically do is we say that they are inspired by that. So Livery is our Latin inspired, Modita is our Asian inspired, Nesso certainly is our Italian inspired. And the way that we look at that is we're pulling ingredients from those cuisines and those cultures, and we're trying to put our fresh take on it.
So is there some sort of unifying philosophy or characteristic? Like if I walk into a restaurant, how do I know it's a Cunningham restaurant, or do I not? Is that part of the magic?
There's lots of people that would say they don't always know that it's a Cunningham restaurant. I think the biggest way that you would know it is through our loyalty program, because our loyalty program spans across all the concepts and all the locations. And people that know, they know. And so they all travel within those different concepts because they can get the points and they can get the rewards from that.
Makes sense. I sort of asked 2 questions there, and you answered the second one, which was the right thing to do. But is there some sort of overarching philosophy or approach to hospitality or anything like that?
I think it's the hospitality approach, and I think you combine that with fresh, locally sourced ingredients and scratch-made menu items. I think that you combine all of that and you get a creativity factor that you get with each chef kind of has the autonomy to build out their menu and to build out a unique identity for their concept. In addition to that, we try to pair that with wines and spirits and things that might fit with that concept. And so I think people tend to gravitate towards ones that they like. I personally am like a small bite type of environment. So I love to go to Livery, I love to go to Modita and order a number of small bites and try a number of things. But the hospitality, the service piece is we really pride ourselves in providing the highest level of service and making that experience, making it an experience that people remember and they want to come back to.
Awesome. And do you have like a corporate chef or a corporate beverage director, or do you what happens at the headquarters and what happens out?
Yeah. So at the headquarters, we centrally manage our finance, our marketing, our HR, our recruiting. And then we have a culinary team at the corporate level that helps with recipe development, chef recruitment. They're really building out the concepts and the kind of the focus and what that strategy is. And then they're working with those chefs very closely to develop menus. So all of us operate in downtown Indianapolis, but they have a test kitchen in Indianapolis where they do all of this development. And then they also do a really fun side thing where they offer tasting menus and tasting dinners to the public to get kind of that first exposure or that custom tailored event to our culinary team. So getting the access to the culinary team for a special event is something that is really popular.
And does that where does that happen, at your headquarters or
No, they'll host them at the test kitchen. They'll host them at our private club and speakeasy, which is called the Bimberg. They will host them at our greenhouse. So we have a greenhouse in town on the south side of Indianapolis that provides microgreens, herbs, a number of different things, flowers, edible flowers for all of our restaurants. So they grow and produce, and then they also service the green walls. So in the photography library that I sent to you, you'll see a green wall at Vita, and you may see it in the pictures from Modita. Modita has one as well. So they take care of that green wall at the locations, but then they also grow the microgreens and herbs. They are a USDA certified greenhouse, and they service all of our restaurants.
Oh, that's neat.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of beverage, do you have a beverage director, or is that?
We don't have a beverage director. What we typically do is that is more decentralized, and it's into the individual restaurants. We want to give the restaurants the autonomy to pick the list that fits their particular concept and their location, and certainly want to tailor to guest preferences. So it's typically not a beverage director, but it's typically like a bar manager and an assistant manager that's building out that profile.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are your plans over the next year? Are you opening new restaurants?
We are. We do have a handful of restaurants in the works for this fall. So this fall, we have another Brew Burger that we're adding in the Fort Wayne market up in northern Indiana. And then we have a new concept called Shindig, and you'll see that on the website. So we count that as one of our concepts since it's already in process. And that Shindig concept will be pizza, wings, and what their tagline is, pizza, wings, and boozy things. So a casual kind of laid back atmosphere, lots of games, and, you know, some place that people are going to hang out after work or maybe go for a work outing.
Neat. And will that be in Indianapolis?
That's in the downtown Indianapolis market, and it's going to be situated at the end of Massachusetts Avenue, if you're familiar with Indianapolis. And it's right next door to the Live Nation headquarters.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. The other entity that we are opening this fall will be our catering entity, which we've always dabbled a little bit in that, where we've had it run through our individual restaurants, or we've made exceptions over the time that we've done things because we've not always had the ability to do catering. So now we're building out a catering entity that will go on site, but also have the ability to do catering events within our restaurants if they don't already have something set up.
And will that be called like Cunningham Catering or something like that?
It will be, yeah. I think it's Cunningham Restaurant Group Premier Events.
Oh, that's
yes.
A little classier.
Yes.
So who, besides you as the head of marketing, who are the main leaders in
Sure.
Restaurant Group?
So we have an executive team. Our team is led by, of course, Mike Cunningham, who is our president and our CEO and founder. We have a president that runs the operations side, and his name is Mike O'Donnell. And then we have a head of HR, and we have a CFO, Gabe Cotton, who is our CFO.
Excellent.
As the primary brand of Smithfield Culinary, we take pride in offering a huge array of high-quality pork products. There's really something for everyone, helping you satisfy every crowd, every time. Visit us at smithfieldculinary.com/Smithfield.